The next element is threats. So there were a few threats that I saw during this internship, and something that can also, prolong in these programs if not addressed, in my opinion. So definitely the lack of wins can produce conflicts. I mean, everyone, or rather, I always say it's not who you are when you win, but it's who you are when you lose. And that goes for coaches, players, parents, the administration, everyone involved. As a coach, everything that happens on the court at the end of the day, whether good or bad, is going to always lie on you. And so this is a threat for the coach, emotionally, physically, having to defend oneself if the team doesn't do too well. And in our situation, in our case, we were doing pretty well at the very beginning of preseason, and then we definitely tanked once we got to conference play and started, playing tougher teams. And so that came the lack of motivation and commitment from the players. They started to question themselves and had lack of confidence. And then the parents got involved. Started questioning the tactics of the coaches and, the school. There is a whole lot that comes into coaching, and, the lack of winning can definitely be a threat. Another huge threat is the lack of funding. And again, being able to fully support your athletes doesn't feel good. You have to ask them to come out of pocket a lot of times, especially if you don't have your fundraisers approved in enough time, but things need to be paid for, or the girls want this or that. And so that could be a burden on the parents, as well as a headache for the coaches if you cannot, ultimately give your players what you want them to have, or what they want to have as well. So that can also be a threat to your program. And then lastly, something that I saw was the role of the coach. The coach has a enormous load that she has on her plate, and not having assistant coaches that can be there full time with her can be an issue, because she's virtually responsible of everything. I know that when I came in, she directly gave me the task that she was currently working on. So I had to think about fundraising ideas. I had to check up on fundraising ideas. I had to check on transportation, check on tournaments, check on creating flyers, doing all these tedious, but very, minimal things that needed to be done. But as a head coach, you're thinking about planning out a practice schedule, making sure that your players are going to classes, making sure that they're passing their classes, making sure that there's no issue. So there's this whole other dynamic of being a coach, where there needs to be a supporting hand that's also there to help with the other tedious, smaller tasks that needs to be done. And if you don't have that, then that can ultimately bring a much larger issue to the efficiency of running a program. And so for PCC, I saw a threat as far as program unity. So I mean, athletic department program unity. So in one of our courses, we talked about the athletic director making sure that the coaches are happy. We talked about budgets and coaches asking, well, why does this team get this amount of money and we only get this? Or why do they get to go here and we only get to go to one tournament? So making sure that the coaches are happy and it's equal and it's balanced is a threat, because there's always going to be someone that's unhappy. And as an athletic director, it's your job to do as much damage control and solving the issue as much as you can, as best you can. And so another element that cross-references with the Chatsworth threat is the lack of funding. Community college sports does not receive a lot of money, and that means that the athletic department doesn't receive a lot of money. And so with this particular department, we actually had to merge the kinesiology and health sciences department together with the athletic department because we didn't have enough money to sustain ourselves as our own entity. So funding can be very important, and it is a huge threat when we don't have the resources that we need to bring in recruits and show our recruits what PCC sports is all about. So that's another threat that I recognize. And then lastly, the availability of the athletic director. Again, like I mentioned, his schedule is extremely packed. The only way really for you to get in to speak with him very briefly is if you have some type of connection with him, if you work at the college, if it's going to be really quick and he knows who you are. But if you're on the outside, you definitely have to check in with his secretary, and if she tells you he's booked for 2 weeks, what do you do, right? Other than send him an email. But that's one of the threats and issues that I do see with the athletic director, because he is always in his office in a meeting, and he's always out of his office attending a sporting event, making sure that everything is goes well with that. So that's one of the threats of the not having the accessibility of the athletic director like you would with other athletic directors, probably at smaller entities like at the high school or middle school level.